Hey, Pete.
What's up, Adam?
How do I use dynamics?
Don't talk so loud. The podcast's falling down.
All right. I'm Adam Maness.
And I'm Peter Martin.
You're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Demonstrations in dynamics and daily jazz advice coming at you.
Man, this is cheesy. What are we doing here?
Because we said we're going to do episode, the why, how, and when of dynamics. We spontaneously felt the need to demonstrate that in a demonstrative manner in literally the cheesiest and most basic way. But, it's a free podcast. You get what you pay for, right?
Highly cheesy, yet highly effective.
That's right.
That's right. Okay, so we have a question here, and I think this is from a Facebook group. This is from Marina, and she says, "Hi,
Not
Pete."
just a Facebook group, our Facebook group.
Our Facebook
I
group,
hope.
the Jazz Piano
Yep.
Studio. Could you kindly explain how to apply dynamics, parentheses, accents when improvising? Thanks, Marina. Well, that's a great question, Marina. And it's, it's something that's not talked about as much as things like scales or pentatonics or voicings, but dynamics is one of the most important parts of communicating your music in an effective way.
Yeah.
I mean, it can make or break a performance.
Yeah, and I like that Marina mentioned through the accents in there because that's sort of an overlooked part. A lot of times people apply that to the area of phrasing, and it's certainly a part of that. But the reality of accents, they are part of dynamics. I think that's something that's understood more by like classical musicians and composers because it falls more under that umbrella for them. Whereas jazz players think about like phrasing as separate from dynamics. And really, to be honest, let's just say I think jazz musicians in general, and I'm throwing myself in the community and pool of us, we don't pay enough attention to dynamics in our compositions. I think that it's an effective jazz improviser is using dynamics as one of the most important elements of the music, and I think that you hear that on all the classic recordings and stuff, and different instruments in different ways, and kind of a group mentality about dynamics. But for instance, I get a lot of like, let's play this tune, or people writing really great music with no dynamics in them. Yeah. And I mean, that can work if you've got a group that's like plays together so much and they're so in tune to how the compositions are going to flow that they almost have like a group dynamic to dynamics, But that is rare. And I think that I don't know, have you seen that in your experience? Kind of under dynamics, right?
Yeah, of course. Everything is under dynamics. I think with the intention that, we'll work it out when we play it, or else it'll just kind of naturally happen. And
that's okay if you have the time and everybody's bought into doing that. But I think there should be a little bit of more intentionality. Yeah. And I learned that I think probably you too, because we've done so much, rather extensive writing and composing and arranging for orchestra where they're not going to work anything. Like if you don't put anything, first of all, if you put no dynamics, they're going to play your thing not very well because they're like, okay, this bozo doesn't know what he's talking about.
It'll be the most bland, medium paced. Yeah, totally. No, I was just going to say my composing life has informed, I think, my playing life more than anything on dynamics. And I actually think about it. I think about it from tune to tune. I think about it from, a set's perspective. And I think about it within the tune of how it's one of the many arcs that I want to think about as I craft, as we improvise with the tune is dynamics. Like, do I want to come in hot? Do I want to come in not? Do I want to, I'm trying to think of another rhyme.
Put a cat in a box?
No, but so this idea
Dr. Seuss is not my friend. Okay, go ahead.
This idea of using dynamics, but then also, dynamics is part of the sound that we want to make, right? So I know that if I play very heavily on the piano, that's not going to be a good sound for me. That's just not
bare paws on the piano.
It
coming down.
It does. I mean, it works great for like Thelonious Monk has this nice like dynamic, punchy touch or whatever. I don't have that touch. My touch is a little bit more flowy, and so like my strength is to pull back on that dynamic level. I know if I'm pushing too much, it's not going to be good. And then also, I choose my musicians based on how
flowy they are.
How flowy, like a flowy shirt. No, I like to play with musicians who are sensitive dynamics. Like, so our group sound, I think, it's really, really important to think about where you are dynamically in the balance of the group. That's another. So there's like 3 prongs to this, right? There's like the overall dynamic of the tune, the overall dynamic to the set, the overall dynamic of your sound, and then how your sound is fitting into the dynamics of the group. Like, if we're trying to form a dynamic arc through a tune, and the drummer is way louder than everybody else at a point, like, it's gonna fall apart. It's gonna suck.
Yeah.
So these are all things that you can. But the good news is these are all things that once you're aware of, like, awareness is key, right?
Yeah.
Then you can start immediately implementing them, and they're gonna make your music sound so much better.
Yeah, and I think you've really framed well the situations where we're going to actually apply them.
Thank you. And I tried to frame that up. So
no, that's good. So let's now talk about kind of when improvising, which was what her question is. But I do think it's a lot of people think about dynamics too much. I'm glad that we've broadened the discussion of this because they think about it too much just in your improvisation. And it has to be part of the whole ensemble, the whole composition. It's not like, oh, it's my solo, let me think about dynamics. That's just one element, and everything that's happened before and is happening should inform that.
That's right.
But we are going to see for sure specific things that we can practice in order to be able to get our kind of dynamic abilities up. That has to be part of your practice routine. Because even if you have the self-awareness as you speak about, if you don't have the ability to play soft,
I totally agree, man.
And to be able to still articulate. I mean, it's just like speaking. If you're a great speaker, has a lot of different levels. Not necessarily us. We're kind of the bear paws of podcasts here. We kind of plotted it out.
Welcome to our podcast.
But I mean, the more now it's not to say that you're going to use all those and you go crazy with them every time, but you have to have them just as you would a voicing or a scale or a harmonic conception. You have to have those in your arsenal if you ever have hopes of being able to apply them at the right time.
Hashtag bear paws.
Hashtag bear paws.
And another thing, I'm glad you mentioned practice, because this is something that was a game changer for me when I realized that I could really put this into my scale practice, my regular scale practice, and it's going to make a huge difference, not just in my technique, but about just, like, we were saying, keeping that awareness of dynamics, right? So I never, when I practice scales or arpeggios or anything, I never practice them mezzo forte the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
That's where
I hate mezzo forte.
I mean, this might be where I start just to get a comfort level going, but you always have to practice dynamically. And then I remember when you showed me, like, the crescendo and diminuendo scale practice, like going from one dynamic to the other in your scale practice, this can really be a game changer.
Yeah, and I think, especially for pianists, well, I mean, of course, I understand it more for pianists, but really, I would think for almost every instrument. But for pianists, like, that's been really important to me as like a warm-up idea and also as a getting to know a new instrument, a way to do that. So like I'm always playing these gigs, we're always playing gigs where it's like we don't know the piano or we haven't seen it in a year or whatever, and you don't have a lot of time to kind of connect with it. I love doing scales in this way with really focusing on some difficult dynamics to see what the instrument can do and what it can't do.
You get that gauge of where the instrument is at.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing on your own instrument, but I think, for horn players and stuff, you go into different environments, the horn sounds different, but they're going to know their instrument better. Vocalists, they know their instrument really well, but, depending on the weather, depending on if you've been sick or
you got
whatever.
a cold,
Yeah. So I think that is super important in your practice, and you'll start to be able to develop those skills that you need to control. This concept that Marina brought up of accents being dynamics. Let's talk about that just a little bit. Because,
another important thing.
Yeah, because this, I think if you think about it, as we said, in terms of phrasing and dynamics together and how those interact with each other, you can really get some good things. So how to apply that, I would say, like, when you transcribe a solo, and hopefully you've transcribed something on your instrument or we always talk about transcribing can be any. Doesn't have to be just your instrument. I always want to remind people. I learned probably more from Miles Davis solos that I transcribed as McCoy Tyner or as much. But go back to a solo that you've transcribed, and I bet you didn't learn. Sorry, I'm not just pointing at you. I'm pointing at everybody here.
It seems very accusatory.
Very accusatory, but I'm accusing everybody. No, I bet that we didn't learn the dynamics as well as we did the rhythms,
of course,
and the notes,
of course.
You know what I mean? So that's your first kind of low-hanging fruit. Go back and learn
the dynamics,
the
accents,
and then how. Yeah, so you have dynamics, you have the accents, and then you have how they come together and how they affect the phrasing. So you can do that phrase by phrase, and you should do that phrase by phrase. Don't go chorus by chorus or measure by measure, because that's probably not how the solo is broken down.
And it's not just the accents, but notice the dynamic shape of the phrase. I remember, I think it was when I was in school, Joe Chambers told me that pianists tend to just throw their hands down, so the starts of their phrase It's like da 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 da.
Right.
Yeah, da 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 da.
Right.
And that's not how music works, right? So be aware. Again, awareness is key. Be aware of the shape, the dynamic shape of the phrase that you're playing. Don't start every phrase as a pianist, anyway, as out of the gate. Don't start every phrase as a trumpet player, meek, and then in.
Right.
You gotta be able to control this and do what you want to do in an artistic way.
That's good.
Thank you, Marina, for the question.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we gave him a lot. We gave him too much to prep. We're over-delivering at this point. Many episodes we under-delivered. Today we over-delivered. That wall is under-delivering.
I mean, I'm just really...
Yesterday you said it was going to be fixed tomorrow, and here we are tomorrow. It's still not fixed.
What's up, Andrew?
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
All right, well, till tomorrow.
You'll hear it.